Okay, so today we are talking about church ministry program development, and I'm primary speaker today, but Jim will speak in as needed to add to some of my thoughts. And so, there we go. We want to start with kind of a problem and talk with you a little bit about it. If you have been around a church for any length of time, you have seen various programs happen, whether that's a Sunday school program or even a sermon series. Perhaps it's a marriage and family class or a food pantry kind of ministry to the community, all different kinds of ministries and programming that churches do. Churches implement many different programs to try to help their community, and they may have different kinds of objectives. Maybe they are simply to grow faith, right? Like the very central focus of the church, which is to grow people in their faith, in maturity, and understanding God and His world. It may be in growing in spiritual practices, like a prayer meeting would be a program that helps people to increase in their prayer, particularly in corporate prayer. Of course, there are marriage and parenting programs that many churches do engage in. Or some churches do leadership potential classes and programs where they try to encourage, younger or people in the faith to move into leadership roles within the church community, and they might have programming to help with that. So there's a lot of different things that churches do that are very good, that are good for the community at large, as well as the church community itself. But almost no churches kind of use some of the principles that we've learned in both education and research that help us understand and evaluate the work that we do. So clearly stating objectives of the programming is often not very clear in many churches, right? We're going to have a prayer meeting. What do they hope will happen in people in that prayer meeting? Is there something they want from God? Is there something they want to happen inside the people in that meeting, for instance? There are often not thoughtfully designed curriculums to meet those objectives, right? Where people think through, like, what is it we want to have happen and how will we design curriculum to make that happen? And then an evaluation of whether or not the intervention, right, now that's counseling and psychology language to use intervention, but the ministry was effective to meet that goal and to kind of loop back, other than like a felt sense, like we all feel like this was really good. This was a good meeting, right? Or this was a good class that we offered. And that's kind of as far as it tends to go. And so we really would like to up the game for churches. It's one of our missions at Charis Institute, particularly for marriage and family ministries, is to really challenge churches around the world to consider upping their game and utilizing a more thoughtful approach. Anything to add to that, Jim?
I say often churches have really two measures of success. One, do more people come? And two, does more offering come? So our income and our head count as often the measures of success for whatever ministry we do. And that might sound cynical. I'm not meaning it to be cynical, because those are two very legitimate measures. It's just they're really low-hanging fruit. They're the most easy measures to make, but they often miss the qualitative measures of internal growth or marital success and those Christ-likeness measures that we really are aspiring to be able to see happen in the people that participate.
Agreed. Okay, so we're designing a program evaluation. We're going to talk a little bit about it today, about the programming we're doing this coming year with all of you that we've been preparing for. And so we're going to talk about that, but I really want to talk about it generally. So when you work with churches or ministries or even counseling centers, and those sorts of environments, to really think about, are there ways in which to use program design and implementation and evaluation that would make the entire program work better. And then actually attention to it can actually increase its efficacy, because you stop and think about, like, what are our objectives and what curriculum would work best for that sort of thing. So our program evaluation we'll be doing is a systematic creation and evaluation of phases and activities involved in a sound and effective marriage program for churches. So this is kind of a definition of what it is that we're doing. All right. So to do that, we put together the actual objectives of this Grace Together program. And so we wanted to make it simple, but you'll see kind of some layers in here, I hope. And then we try to use objective language like people use in the education world, which is very direct and very active language. So you'll see that in the way we talk about it, because that's kind of the tradition within education. So one of the objectives is to engage couples and marriage ministries in their church community for the creation of supportive groups, right? And we've said this from the beginning, like, we really like our curriculum. We like our content, obviously, right? We've been creating it and building it. But really the action is in having people get together with other married couples of different ages and different life stages and create these supportive groups and be able to look across the table or across the room and the living room and say, hey, you care about my marriage. I care about your marriage, and we're going to support each other, because marriage and family and all the things that go around that are difficult. And so you're not alone in this, right? We're going to do this together. And so that's really one of the major objectives of the program. And that one of the things that church communities in particularly can offer that even therapists can't offer, because we can't be that community to them, right? As a psychologist or a counselor, but their church community, their peers can. So it's largely peer involvement. A second objective is to apply the principles of the conflict model to their relationship. We really believe that people have this sense of pain. They know there's pain in their relationship. Even the best of marriages have some pain in them, but they don't necessarily have a narrative that is productive and helpful, right? Their narrative often is something like, I feel like a good person, and I feel like this person that I'm married to is not a good person. And so that's the narrative, right? Is if I could just get my partner, my spouse to, do what I need them to do, we would be happy. And this is not a helpful narrative, and it's not biblical either. And so the conflict model moves them towards something to understand this pain, defense, offense, in a way that's more compassionate, that's more rooted in a sense of common identity as a couple, that we have a common problem, right? Whenever there's pain together, they both share it, and moves them towards responding in ways that are virtuous. So that's one of the objectives of this program. We hope that they actually learn the model, for instance, and are able to apply it to their relationship. The third objective is to focus on relational virtues based on spiritual growth for relationship enrichment, right? So there's lots of different things people can do for relationship enrichment. They can do communication skills. They can just go rock climbing or kayaking together. There are a lot of things that can lead to relationship growth, but the message, the approach that this program is taking is to use relational virtues through spiritual growth, right? So we're kind of doing a spiritually directive approach to improvement in the relationship. And we're focusing them on the relational virtues like compassion, grace, and humility and forgiveness, things like that. And then finally, we want to actually see them also progress in their own personal spiritual transformation to become more mature Christians as they're discipled by Christ. So this is not just about improving relationships. We also have an objective for them to become more Christ-like as time goes by, and that this program would assist them in that, and would support them in that. All right, so that was a lot of things. Jim, anything to add there, to extend an idea or anything?
Nope, nope, you're good. Keep on rolling.
Okay, we'll keep on rolling. All right. So with those objectives, we spent a good part of last year designing some brand new curriculum. And some of this is actually so brand new that no one's seen it but you guys. So the Grace Together workshop was a curriculum designed to originally create those supportive groups, right? So some churches already have those supported groups. Maybe they already have groups of married couples that get together either socially or for small group Bible study, prayer groups, those sorts of things that are already happening. But there are often people kind of on the outside of those groups, or maybe they have not been able to engage in them. And so it creates groups, or it pulls together groups that are already existing. Then we're going to introduce the conflict model to give them a narrative that is a little more biblical and more psychologically healthy for their relationship, and cast a vision really for relational virtues for marriage, right? They're not going to engage in too much, maybe a little bit. There's like the last module essentially gives them a chance to kind of respond to each other in a compassionate, loving way. But we're kind of saying like, hey, this is what the future could look like. It's about 5 or 6 hours, so it's very simple. The second stage, we just named, we decided it needed its own separate name this last week. So we're calling it Loyal Love, and it's the 8-week small group. And the idea is some churches can do this, and I know every church is different. Some churches, and some of you guys are just going to do the Grace Together workshop or retreat, that sort of thing, and that's what you can do. Some churches want to create the groups through a retreat and then maybe follow up either right after or shortly after with a kind of group to pull the people together. I actually think that's really important. I mean, retreats are great, or weekend workshops, or a 5-week, kind of Sunday school class or something. But if you really want to kind of see growth and build relationships and that sort of thing, it takes time. So this adds some more time. So we want to bond those groups together, get them more involved in each other's lives, kind of past the introductory stage. We want them to start to apply spiritual virtues to their marriages with kind of weekly themes of various different relational virtues, and that will help them also progress in their own personal spiritual transformation, both as a couple and as individuals. And then we have the take it home activities, which is totally on their own. It's kind of like devotionals, basically, right? Or like quiet times with God. But it's a daily 5-minute activity between the Loyal Love meetings where people take the theme of the week and maybe they listen to a song, maybe they read a devotional, maybe they read a scripture, maybe they look at artwork. So we kind of procured a lot of things on a theme and put them together. And we have kind of an email that goes out to everybody is the simplest way to do that, that says, hey, here's the things for this week that we encourage you to do, either in your quiet time that you already have, or for people who are not doing any kind of daily time with God in prayer and devotion, that it might encourage them to kind of engage in that in a small way. So this is really the design. So kind of 1, 2, 3 pieces of it. Not all churches, we understand, are going to do all the pieces of it, but I think that it's feasible. I think it's something that can be done. And what we found when we did the River Oak group is people were willing to sign on for a 1-day workshop. Once they got there, created the groups, and got to know each other a little bit, they really liked each other. And about half of the people that attended the workshop decided they did want to go on and do the 8-week small group and got those going. And so it didn't take too much effort because it was a peer group led kind of a thing. And more mature couples in the church were leading the Loyal Love group. It wasn't necessarily like we didn't lead any groups personally, Jim and I. So anything to add there about the design of the curriculum, Jim?
I'm with you. Keep going.
Okay. So from there, we're moving to a program evaluation of the work that we're doing. We want to look back and kind of look and see, right? Taste and see where the Lord has been good. And so program evaluation, style evaluation is very brief. We think we have 10 minutes and we're actually shooting for 6 minutes of people's time. So 10 minutes would be if people don't read very well or something. And to try to kind of take a temperature and find out what it is that happened, where it was that God worked in their marriage and their personal lives. It's called a within subjects design. So if you need to dust off your resource design, if you have that as a part of your background, it just means we're going to repeatedly measure the same people, and we're not going to have a control group with this. And that's fine for program evaluation type of work. We are quantitative for everyone that's willing. We have some quantitative, that's that 6-7 minute questionnaire for everybody. And then we plan to do some random selection of a smaller group of people to do some interviews qualitatively and dig a little deeper and find out, where God worked and what worked and didn't. We have to make a decision on what to measure. So this is where we're at. We actually want to co-create this with you. And so obviously we can't add 30 minutes more of questionnaires or give them all extensive psychological testing. But we really do long for your input on this. We have a team and that's been creating this, but really would love to hear your input on what to measure. So we have a short measure of just their marital quality, right, how much they get along. A perceived stress measure, but 4 questions on that. 3 questions on general spiritual thriving, right? How much they feel like they're growing, maturing, getting closer to God in their life. 3 questions on spiritual intimacy within the marriage itself, right? How much they seem to be kind of growing together and kind of in a bond in their relationship. 1 question on how much their relationship reflects the character of God. So it's a kind of a relational virtue. And 2 questions on their small group cohesion, how well their group work together and people trust each other. And then some utilization questions. So how much of the things that were offered did people actually engage in? So we can kind of get a effect curve on that. And some direct questions as well, like what did you like the most? And what was distracting, or what could you reduce? What could we reduce or change? We are in a continuous improvement model of work here. So this kind of gives you a sense of what the program evaluation looks like for us. Again, we are super open to ideas on measurement and that sort of things. So sorry about the email reminder. It got missed this week, and I sent it, well, for us early this morning at 7 o'clock, so I know you only got like a 2-hour notice. Thank you to Vaughn for letting me know about that. What that looks like for within subjects design is that we want to capture everybody before they begin to engage in the ministry, so some kind of pre-intervention, and then we want to capture them after Grace Together, or when they would have participated in Grace Together if they didn't actually participate. We would like to capture them again after what would be the 8-week Loyal Love or time equivalent, so about 2 months later, and then maybe about 1 more month after that. So we know not everybody may participate in all of that, but we kind of have a start time and then kind of work through and trying to collect information on people through the internet, all online, within subjects design. So I kind of get you a sense of that. This is one of the things that is the most difficult in doing a project that's all over the world. And that is when people register for your group that you're running through your ministry or your church for your event. We would need a way for us to automatically be sent the couple to automatically be sent to the questionnaire online that was created, right? So we want to think about that. We'll be kind of starting to think about that, and I'm going to open up for conversation here for everybody in the chat and such. At the same time, we would also ask that you send us email addresses of both partners as people register so we can also invite them to participate, okay? So essentially, when River Oak is a large church and they have like tech people, right? So when they did it, they had like an online question that they needed for things. And then when people hit submit that information, it automatically went to our online survey and they filled out the online survey. That was the most efficient and effective way, I think, for people to do that. But I know a lot of churches don't operate that way, and it just doesn't work. People won't go online to register for events because they never do, right? So if your group is going to sign people up in person, and you're going to have a clipboard, and those kinds of things, that you gather email addresses, and whoever's in charge of the clipboard would send those to us, and then we'll invite them to participate in the program evaluation and development work with us and collaborate together on that. They can refuse, as in all research ethics. People can decide not to participate in the evaluation at all, and that is fine. You should not limit them in their access to your ministry, right? In that. But we do want to offer it to them. We don't want people to not be aware that there is an evaluation happening of the work that's being done, that sort of thing. In the end, if you have more than one person who participates from your group, we will share a de-identified data back to you for your group. So you can also see how things went with your group and, you know, the particular feedback from your group. And then of course we'll be looking across all the groups and moving towards publication and that sort of thing, presentation, contributing to the scientific community and all of that to make the world a better place. Okay, so this procedure is probably one of the most difficult ones, and I really did want to hear from folks on this in this group today, your thoughts about how to make this work. You guys have had so many good creative ideas, and I would love to hear your thoughts about how this could work. Yeah, embedding the hyperlink in registration. If you can do that and people are registering online for that, that is probably the easiest thing to do. And we'll have, you know, different, at least a few different languages of things.
I think it requires a lot of repeated explanations as to what this is and how this works, so people don't feel threatened, or even you know, I guess once they're through it once, they know, oh, okay, it's not so bad. But really understanding it and explaining that how the process works. In a busy mind or in a stressed out mind, this may get lost, especially if they're coming to or dealing with marital issues. So yeah, just calm explanations and repetition, I think, would help. You know, and ease of access, of course. It all has to be easy. So. Yeah.
Absolutely, I really like that idea. Yeah, so it's very clear what it is we're doing and why, and like whoever is giving the information about the programming, you know, like if you have a church bulletin or church announcements that, hey, we'll be doing a few questions to evaluate how this works for everybody. You know, we want to know how it is for you, kind of thing, like an invitation kind of a model of communication versus a, well, we're doing this research, I don't really understand it, but, you know, whatever, you know, kind of thing.
Thomas's question is, I think, real good. Like, what are, in essence, what are people afraid of? And observation, two things. Their fear is that the things that they self-report could come back to hurt them in some way. Like their spouse would, if they're honest and their spouse observes or it's used in some way that could be harmful. That one's really easy to overcome by just emphasizing the anonymity of all of it, and that fear we usually are pretty good at managing. The other obstacle we have is that the concept of it just, to most people, it doesn't matter. And it's not of great importance because they don't see that what their experience is actually has relevance to what we're going to do then next year. And that input from them collectively gives us really good directives for what to do. So much of it is going to be a public relations marketing, selling this as a really important component in what goes on. And that's hard because it's not going to benefit them directly. It's going to benefit the next group. Just like we took what we learned from River Oak and used it for this group. And that's the sell part, that subjects who participate in any study are really never the direct beneficiaries of that particular experience. Therefore, so our motivation drops. Thoughts on that one, Jen, or other researchers that have been doing this for a while?
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts on that.
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes, first of all, I'm over here in Laredo, like we mentioned, and we were trying to work in collaboration with another person in El Paso to translate the curriculum. And you guys gracefully said that, yes, we can do it. But in reference to this, that you're trying to, we're going to send you the email of the participants. We have a lot of participants that speaks only Spanish. How is that going to work?
Yeah.
Right. So we did select several of the questionnaires are in Spanish. Like we selected questionnaires that exist in multiple languages, right? But for those of you that are working with non-English speakers in your groups, we will probably need a little bit of help. And I can send you the questionnaires. Again, they're very short, but we'll need your help to turn like the informed consent, which is about a one-page thing that we have to do for research ethics, into your language for the various languages. And then for the ones that have your language already, we'll give you that. And then there's a few of those questions that we created, and we'll ask you to help convert those into your language or the people in your group's language that they're speaking. So there is some investment here on this, and we would appreciate it if you're willing to do that. Talk with us individually if that's something that you feel like is a barrier to participating, and let's work it through on a case-by-case basis. The Spanish one, I think we have quite a few. Also, Jim speaks Spanish pretty well because he lived in Honduras for a while. So that one is a little easier for us than some of the other one.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Of course, you can send me informed concern, and yes, we'll help you translate that.
Thank you.
What if I understood, the questions that will be sent to the participants will be in Spanish already, so they can type their answer in Spanish, and then if in case that you need, we'll help you translate. And perfect. And the other questions that I have, so we can explain our participants. I know during counselings, of course, we talk about confidentiality, of course, and not revealing names and anything. So we can inform our participants that even though they're going to be receiving the email directly from you, from the university and the program, their information is going to be confidential, right? Their names or things like that are not going to be.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and we'll make sure that's in our information, bright and clear, right? This information is being shared with Charis Institute, and only the aggregate, basically the collective, information will be shared back to your church, like the total numbers, the total scores, that sort of thing. No individual data, no individual person's answers, that sort of thing. The only, we'll have to be thoughtful about this because I know, you just posted about doing qualitative, but for you in Finland, right, if I'm remembering right, like we would actually probably need you to do the interviews with your community. So obviously it wouldn't be confidential for that because we don't speak Finnish. So we would just have to say, yeah, we'll take the qualitative data on that, and if you can help turn the quantitative into things, that's great. If not, it's fine. We'll work with you. We just won't be able to include that church in our larger study. We'd be a little bit blind to them. So qualitative, we're thinking about interviewing maybe 20-ish people total, right? So we'll go really deep with the qualitative things and their kind of lived experience of going through this, but we won't be able to capture broadly, particularly with so many different projects going on. So we would be thinking like maybe one or two people from your church, that would be qualitatively interviewed. But we'll share our interview questions with you, and we can talk further about what would work for your church too. So yeah, for some of you, this is very easy. It's just like, yep, we can totally embed the link. People will go there. Then we'll have their email addresses because we'll have collected it, and it'll go from there. I think we had 150 participate in River Oak out of about 200. And some of that was because some people signed up at the very last minute. We did have research assistants with us, so we offered a paper version of the questionnaires. I think we got about a dozen of those back though. So it's not a big deal for people who register at the last minute, But we can work out procedures on that later if you want to try to capture the people that register at the last minute so you have a more complete picture of your own program evaluation for yourself too. So, other questions or ideas about this? I see Lydia's QR code. We can definitely do that. SurveyMonkey actually automatically creates a QR code, and that's the survey system we use, so we can send those to you guys, both for the English and the Spanish and any other versions that you guys help us to create. How will you know when to send the follow-up surveys if everyone doing things different times? Right. So this is the wonder of having wonderful research assistants. So I think Caitlin is on here with us. You might want to say hello, Caitlin. I don't know if you can do that. We didn't forewarn you that we might be doing this, but Caitlin is a really wonderful research assistant, and part of her role is to communicate with everyone who's doing a project next year at some point and getting your plan. Right? So finding out like when you think you'll be starting. Are you going to do a 1 day or 1 weekend Grace Together? Are you going to do, you know, across time, and that would change the timeline? So all of that. So we will have a staff here working with you, and we actually have a couple other staff who do other things for us and can step in if it gets too busy and help to get that timeline. So each project, right, each church will have its own timeline, whether you're doing this on February 28th or whatever day, or whether you're doing this on April 15th, you know, like whatever your start date is for your church, we will, you know, work with you guys to get those going on. An announcements only form for the event via social networking. Yeah, I've thought about that too. We used Facebook last time because we were working with more of a kind of young to middle age people in the suburbs of Virginia, and that tended to be more the app that they used. So this is the only problem with using apps, is that, you know, WeChat is used in China, right? But not in the States. You know, WhatsApp is used by some people. If you're working with a really young group, they'll use TikTok. So, you know, we might kind of, you know, we can set up our own Facebook page definitely again to kind of run again with some of the themes and content and all of that stuff. That's pretty easy for us to do. I think we're willing to try something else for people. But it may be something more like, if you know your group and you know everybody in your group is using WhatsApp and that's like normal for them, that the local program leader would kind of host that themselves, right? And kind of like get everybody on WhatsApp together and get them talking about compassion and the pain conflict model and kind of working on those things in the communication between meetings and before the meeting to promote participation and that sort of thing. So we kind of leave that up to you guys for anything beyond. Even for Facebook, we really did it as like a post-meeting conversation, not really like a promotion too much. So every church is different for that. But I like the way you think. You can tell that Vaughn is working with a college crowd at American University. All right, I don't want to belabor this, but I knew that this was different procedures for different places. And so we'll be communicating with you guys further as you get going and deciding, yep, we're doing a project, we've picked a date, we're getting started, and coming up with a procedure of how to do the program evaluation for you. From there, we will take it for you. Obviously, like Oya, if you want to do it yourself, we will give you everything and you can run it yourself. And that's fine, especially, you know, when translation is an issue. But you won't need to do anything in terms of tracking people down or getting them to fill out questionnaires or that sort of thing. We do ask, and we'll give some reminders, you know, like, when you get to the end of the 8-week group, if people are doing that home Bible study, that home group thing, like, hey, everybody, remember, there's a questionnaire coming your way. Please encourage everybody to do it. So that would be great if people would do that, and just kind of a social encouragement. But other than that, it's really all done by our team. So And I think it's really helpful to know we are not going to annoy your people. We are not going to make their lives difficult, and we are not going to become the new spam in their email box. We are dedicated to that. And so it's very important that you know what's going to happen. They'll get a few emails from us about the project, but not more than a few, right? We're not going to spam them and send them things every day like Target and Kohl's and things does with me, right? And so they'll get a baseline question at the registration. They'll give consent. Yes, I consent to answer questions, and I understand what the purpose is, and we kind of explain that to them in a way they can understand. And then they'll have about 5 to 7 minutes worth of questions. I think right now we're only at about 35 questions, so it's really quick. It's even probably less than 5 minutes for people who are fast at that. Then after they finish the questioning or the Grace Together program, we'll ask them another set of questions. This has a little bit longer because we also ask them about how the group was doing and their direct evaluation of what it was like for them, what they liked, what didn't work for them, that sort of thing. And then a very similar set of questions, post loyal love or time equivalent. So if people just do Grace Together, we will ask them to fill out questionnaires again at the same time period, because then we get a bit of a dose effect curve, right? Like we can find out like, okay, people who just did Grace Together had this much change, people who did Grace Together and Loyal Love had this much change, and people who did Grace Together, Loyal Love, and the Take It Home activities had this much change. We expect to see a dose effect curve like that, but we don't know. We've never done that before. Even in the last one, the pandemic hit right in the middle of it. We didn't really get to evaluate the Loyal Love 8-week group. We just evaluated the Grace Together group, and we did find effect size, by the way. We just finished the article yesterday. We're sending it off to publication, but we found effect size of 0.3, which is pretty typical for a one-day workshop. So we're happy about that. And then about a month after that. So we're going to try to capture them one more time after it's kind of all settled down and it's over, with a shorter set of questions again, if they'd be willing to do that. And then we have a select group of people, either by phone or Zoom. And we might need a little help for Spanish speaking. We have a really wonderful group of people here who actually can do some of this, or for Chinese speaking, Mandarin and that sort of thing, to help us out with qualitative interviews. So those will be a little bit different, but we do have some gift cards we can give out to people for giving a little more of their time on qualitative interviews. So, but just for you to know, they're going to get a few emails each time, but not more than that. We're not going to hound them. Okay. We also wanted to introduce, we decided this week to offer something within our house here too. Our primary goal is for it to happen within the church because you're trying to build community in the church. However, we call them the oddball couples. These are people maybe they would really like to participate in what you're offering, but their schedules can't work, their childcare situation falls apart. They participated in Grace Together and they really want to do Loyal Love, but the group didn't work out for them, right? Or they can't make it on Tuesday nights when everybody else can, things like that. We are going to offer an online Zoom group. It'll have to be in English, but led by our team here that will meet weekly to go through both programs starting in late February through May. So if something happens and you find out and people are like, oh, I really wanted to sign up for Grace Together, but I can't that day. I have duty at the military or something. Then you can say, hey, this is another alternative. Would you like me to send your info to them, and they'll invite you to participate. So just refer them to us, and we'll be setting up a web page for people to register for that on our website too, at Caris Region EDU. So just kind of letting you know, this isn't really what we want to happen. We really want it to be embedded in churches, but we thought we'll go ahead and offer this and kind of see how it goes this time.
Yeah.
So. We will have some questions of you guys as the program directors of your program. And so we will be asking you a few questions kind of towards the end of it all, asking what programs did you actually end up utilizing? You know, maybe you planned to do 5 Loyal Love groups in your large church, but only 2 made it. Okay, we want to know what happened with that. And your own evaluation, what worked well from your perspective. So we get kind of a 360 review from various perspectives. What worked well, what could be improved, what would you do differently in the future. and your own suggestions to us for our own continuous improvement so that we are constantly improving the program. All right, that's it today. We have a shorter one. Questions people have about implementation, about the project generally, maybe where people are at and what support you need from all of us as a team to be able to effectively engage in this in the spring.
This is Tracy. I am not going to be able to do one in the spring, but I have a great opportunity for 2022. So that would, like, we'd be taking the refined program that gets redeveloped and improved and not be in the study. Would that be correct?
Yes.
That sounds great. Yeah, we'll keep in contact with you about that and being able to do it into the future kind of thing. Yeah.
And Tracy, if you have interest to stay close to one of a project online that is doing it, and that, like, okay, I'm gonna observe their project in 2021 so that I won't make their mistakes, like the mistakes that Jim and Jen make, because we pass them on to just the things that we don't know yet. I see it. I see what works here, and sorry, my light's on an automatic and I just went dark. So that's an option you'd have if you want to stay active. Your knowledge could be very beneficial to another local group that you might want to partner with.
Okay. No, that's great. My friend Mike, I don't see him on today, but we've talked about collaborating and doing one together. I just can't use my church group because I'm already doing Art of Marriage this year and Art of Parenting next year, and I can't flood them with stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So perfect.
Okay.
Would it be possible for us to secretly get in on your Zoom Facebook group just to see how it looks?
Sure. We'll find a way.
I love that phrase. No, go boldly with big blaring announcements. I'm here.
Okay. It would just be really, even if it's 1 or 2 sessions, just to see how it operates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm gonna write that down. Yeah. And I mean, maybe the breakout discussions we wouldn't open up to everybody because we want people to feel safe in them, obviously, but the larger work of it all, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Jen, Libby will ask about getting a copy of the curriculum that we have so far. Has that been sent to everyone, like day 1, day 2, as he puts out in his note?
I thought we sent it early, at least participant guides and things. We were revising the like program director version of it still. And so that's still underway, and we'll have that in a couple, but end of the month, I would say we'll have something for that because we're creating the videos and everything. Later this month.
Yeah, some of the electronic technology stuff, the video pieces, we are working out in November and December, and then it's going to the editor in December and January. We're meeting, in fact, even with that production team today.
Yeah. So those are happening, but we can send that out again for everybody so that you have the manuals, you have the information kind of in front of you, and it's handy. Had to miss last time. Oh, yes, we will. Part of what happened last time is it was Friday, and I thought, oh, we'll put it up on Monday, and I got sick last week, and I didn't have coronavirus, thankfully, but I had a sinus infection. I was out all week, and I'm kind of the person that does that between the two of us, so I just waited till today. We'll get it up. We'll get both of last week and this week's up today. So. Oh, yes, much better. Thank you.
Yes, it was.
It just threw me off.
Ula, what are you thinking about the qualitative components in Finland compared to the quantitative?
Somebody would ask me. so trust you doing that. Well, when I presented this whole concept at the elders meeting, one of the key concerns was it's now about the meaning. What is the meaning of me attending a marriage seminar? And unfortunately, with a bunch of population in Finland, the meaning is that there is something wrong with your marriage if you attend. So there is an initial stigma about coming into any of this. Yeah. So I need to cross that very gently. And I, right or wrong, maybe I don't trust my fellow Finns, but I'm thinking if I then charge in with things like this, which are really important, then I might scare them off, and I would rather not do that because I'm treading on thin ice anyway. What I was thinking as a qualitative component is what I did for my dissertation as my design. It had 3 interviews. It was before, currently, and meaning, and I could possibly utilize that because then it would have 3 interviews and it would have a specific focus. Yes, a little more laborious, but even if I could get a couple of couples do that with me, then I think it might be helpful for some purpose, even if it wasn't helpful for your article.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. For your own evaluation is really an important purpose too, for you to know what's working with your group. I hear you on that. I think one of the things that really worked for us earlier this year was that the pastor that was over the project at the church invited 15 or so couples to be group leaders. And those couples were invited as more like mentors, right? Like they were there to be like, hey, you're already leaders in the church. We know, of your longish standing marriage or something, this is an honor to be asked. Would you be willing to lead small group discussions at the retreat or the day? And then because that was kind of like the first step, it became kind of like you're honored to be participating in this. And it became a little bit less stigma as in, oh, our marriage is in big trouble and we need to go, because no, lots and lots of people are attending who are like the Sunday school teachers and the people who lead prayer teams and, the people who are elders or deacons or that sort of thing in the church. And so that really worked in that community. And I think that's something to consider as a way to kind of get past the we don't really have problems in our marriage. I don't know why we would attend this, kind of thing. It's like, oh, this is just a chance for you to get together with other couples, have a good day. And you can even, if you're savvy about it, get those couples, right, those elders and deacons and church leaders to invite the non-leader kind of couples in the community.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And Ulla, you touched on what some really fascinating research is showing around stigma and why people don't do these things. It's because a very emerging, powerful trend discovered by psychologists and scholar, professional, counselor people like the ones talking here is it looks like we wear white coats. It looks like the stigma is us. The stigma is psychology because psychology is attached to craziness and people who help with craziness. So, and with all these things that I'm trying to run away from. The church has much less stigma than the mental health professional, and there is an informal welcome that is often more likely to occur in a church community because we're not seen as an adjunct to medical practice and psychopathology. We're just seen as the community church down the street, and we really where people come to be loved and to love others and to understand God and to build their families. So as much as you can get away from Jen and Jim, that might be helpful. And that's not at all offensive to us. We're working with the church because we think the church has a more natural pathway to having contact and interaction with people than the clinic does. So don't, I love the way you associate it with kind of like stodgy, paranoid Finns. No, those stodgy, paranoid folks live in Chesapeake, Virginia too. Those are everywhere. And we use you because the church is far more effective in inviting people to come and learn about being better at marriage, because you don't have a DSM-5. You're not looking for psychopathology. You're looking for people who just want to be honest and grow and get better and enjoy the weekend with their spouse and with their children.
Good points. Thank you, Dr. Sal.
James, that's really striking me. I've been leading marriage oneness at my church, and when my husband and I do it, we put down that I'm an LMFT, and we get 2 to 4 couples. I had a lay couple offer it, and they had 10 couples sign up.
Yep.
So maybe I need to just leave my credentials off flyers, and that's really not the appeal I thought it was to attract participants.
Yes, it's not.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like the way Ula just referred to me, and she does that so respectfully. Thank you, calling me Dr. Cells, but just shut up with that, because that gets in the way of what I'm trying to do here. Like if I was grading your papers for class, yeah, you have to call me Dr. Cells. But otherwise, if I'm Dr. Cells to the group of couples, like nope, they don't even want to talk to me. I'm scary. So our authority is very useful because I don't want to dismiss it, because I know what to ask. I know what to present. I know what the issues are. But if I present my authority as the one who validates this, then they're not going to like me. They're going to be drawn away from me. Pastors have the same problem sometimes. If a pastor goes to a party and says, yeah, I pastor the First Methodist Church, then nobody wants to talk to them at the party. So it's not, there's a professionalism that often gets in the way of human vulnerability.
Yep. Yeah, so if you're known as a counselor or psychologist in your community, you might want to take a back seat and not be part of promotion, not be part of the communication about it. Really kind of sit back and kind of let the pastor or a church leader of some sort be the one to communicate more about it as a better way. Because I think people rightfully understand the difference between going to marital therapy and going to like a marriage retreat or class, right? And so if a therapist comes in and says, I'm going to offer a class, they get confused. Like, is this going to be therapy? I don't want therapy, right? And people kind of understand, like, yeah, we all live with like some like little demons in our relationships that we're just going to let lie, We don't want them dug out, except in environments that can handle it, and therapy can handle it, but a class at church can't handle it. And I really don't want that other couple over there to know how much we fight, or whatever. So I think that's part of what you face with the stigma. Then they're smart about that in some ways, right? And so be able to say, like, it is a positive curriculum. It's, it's not meant to dig out all their deepest pains, and we introduce the pain model, but it's not going to be like a, cry at the altar for hours kind of a curriculum. So yes, it is actually enrichment. It is marriage education. So if you call it a retreat or a class or a workshop or an enrichment, that is all actual, true. Yeah, it is not counseling. That's the way it's set up for a church and environment. Anyway, if you wanted to use it within a counseling center and do kind of like groups, I think you want to think of it as kind of like an enrichment or a growth or a thriving kind of a positive psychology intervention within that environment, if that's kind of where you're working. I know maybe a couple people are in that type of environment here. But if you're working in a church, then it is an enrichment. It's a class, Mm-hmm. Yep, it's 10 o'clock already. Look at that. Thank you, Rochelle. We may come back to you with questions about good IT things, because I know you're really good at that. So All right. So if you need to go, please do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert Abrams. Really wonderful. I think I will come back to you with some questions about that. Thank you all.